Okay, so today is the last night of our commit series that we've been doing towards the end of the summer before school starts. And so we've been talking in the past 2 weeks about what commitment looks like, what it means, how God has been and always will be committed to us. And I know Andrew and Hannah, they shared stories of something where they were committed to something. And so I was going to share your story of something that I was really committed to in high school. And some of you guys might know this, some part of the story, but when I was in high school and middle school, I thought I was very committed to volleyball. And I have a picture. It's not me playing volleyball, but it's with my team. And I was like 15, and I look like a baby, I feel like. And on the right, I'm in the middle. On the left, I am wearing jeans because I was injured, which is not a big surprise because I hurt myself all the time. But that was my volleyball team, my favorite team. I had changed around a couple times because of club ball, but I started playing volleyball when I was in 5th grade. And at the YMCA, and when I was in 8th grade, I started playing club, and it was called Club Wind. And after when I finished playing, they actually stopped being a team. So I was the last team on Club Wind. So I claim that as a victory for me, but I felt really bad for them because they just dissipated, basically. But I played all through middle school in club ball. I got really intense about it, and I played all year long. During the summer, I did camps, or I helped lead camps at my school. Played during the school, and then school ball ended in October, and so did club ball start in October. So I played up until junior, senior year or so because I got hurt, which again, not a surprise. That's why I'm wearing jeans in that picture. That was my sophomore year. I hurt myself sophomore year because my coach told me that I am one of the least graceful player he's ever seen, but I got the ball where it was supposed to go, so he didn't try to correct me. I just didn't, so I could get it where it's supposed to go, but I didn't look pretty doing it. So I was just like, that's fine, I don't care, you're sweating already, so I don't have to look pretty on the court. But, so I hurt myself on my foot, and it was an injury that I kept pushing myself to play even afterwards because I really loved the game, and I was committed to playing volleyball. And it got to the point where I pushed myself so far that it's an injury that I still am dealing with my foot. Like even this past week, or 2 weeks ago when I was on vacation, I had to pop my foot back into place because of it. So if you were on mission trip 2 years ago, I think you guys saw me have to do that one time. It actually made noise. It was pretty gross. But it's an injury I still have today. But the story I want to share about when I was really committed happened with this team and this coach that's on the left picture. I had some crazy coaches throughout volleyball. Some that Oklahoma rated as the hardest coach in the state, and I was happy to have them, but this coach was insane. I mean, full on, just crazy. She was incredible, and I loved her, a great person, but she was a health nut to the next level. And she was a nurse, so she knew what really you needed to be healthy and in shape, but she pushed us so hard on it to where we had a notebook, this little black notebook, that I had to fill out what I was eating every day, and my parents had to sign it up at the end of every day to make sure I'm telling the truth, and then turn it into my coach at practice. They check it, and then they give it back, and I have to keep doing that. I had to do that for 8 months. We weren't allowed to eat fast food, nothing that was unhealthy for you, which is a lot of stuff. No sugar, except we could have Gatorade on practice days or game days. That was the only time we could have Gatorade. We couldn't have milk on practice or game days because milk, I guess, is really bad for your stomach if you're running. And so no sugar or anything. And at first it was really difficult, but the hardest one for all of us was the lack of pizza. All year long, I wanted pizza so bad. And I didn't know I liked pizza that much. But my whole team wanted just pizza the entire time, and we couldn't have it. Otherwise, you'd get in a lot of trouble, and you would have to run a ridiculous amount of laps, and it just wasn't worth it. And so my coach started to realize how much we liked pizza and decided, I'm going to use this to bribe them. So she decided that if we push ourselves harder, we run faster, get to the ball faster, which in a volleyball court is not very far. You can get somewhere pretty fast because you're limited on where you can go. Hit the ball harder, jump higher, make your swing go faster, make it more accurate if you're a hitter, which I was a middle and a right hitter, so I had to do that. She said that if we pushed ourselves so much, and this is the part that makes her insane, that if we made someone on the opposite team bleed, then we get a pizza party. She was insane, just crazy. She's a very sweet girl, but crazy. So that did happen. There was one time where we did make a girl bleed, and it happened in Tulsa. We were actually playing at Jinx for a volleyball tournament. And like I said, I was a middle hitter, and if you're a middle hitter, you have a lot of strategy because you have the entire court to hit on. Putting the ball anywhere, and so you have to work I consider that one of the hardest spots because there's so much you have to work with and you're constantly running back and forth. So I had a lot of strategy in my mind when I had to go and play volleyball. Well, this one game, they moved me over to the right side. And with the right side, you don't have to do as much strategy because literally the entire court is just on this side of you. So you just have to like aim that direction. Well, with this, I went up for a hit. It was someone that we were playing volley back and forth really well. Someone hit the ball to our setter set it perfectly, and I went up and I smacked that as hard as I can, and it went straight down on the other side of the net. And so we got a point for that, but along the way, going down to the ground, hit the girl in the face on her nose, and her nose was just bleeding everywhere. I mean everywhere, it was disgusting. And so my first reaction was I felt terrible, because hopefully I'm a good human being, I thought that. My first reaction was, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. But after a little while, we slowly kind of turned to our coach while they were trying to help her and just looked at her. Like my entire team, like as if we were just having casual conversation, but all of us were silent. And she looked at us and like mouthed the word pizza, and she was like, and then nodded. And we were like, yes! Like we got a pizza party the next practice. And I feel terrible for that. But I was so committed to volleyball that I hurt someone else. And I don't know if I was committed to volleyball or honestly I was committed to pizza. But I was committed so much that I actually hurt someone else. And it wasn't on purpose. I didn't want to make someone else bleed. I just had a perk out of it afterwards. Sounds bad, I know. So, but that was how intense I was about volleyball. It was like my life. I mean, I came to church still, but if I ever said that there was something that I definitely worshipped more than going to my church, was volleyball. It consumed me, and I loved it so much. And to this day, I still claim that, like, I love volleyball. I still feel like I'm committed to volleyball, but if we went down to the gym and played volleyball tonight, there's no way that I could play like I did then. But in my mind, I think I can. Because I used to. You know, when you do something for so long, you're just like, oh, I could totally do that. Like, I could still spike that ball just like that day. Oh, there's no way. I might not even be able to reach over the net this time. Because I haven't played in like 10 years. Like 8 to 10 years or so. And so I'm like comparing my 26-year-old self, who's not very active, like I don't like going running, to my 16-year-old self who's playing for hours every day of the week, thinking that, oh, I could totally do the exact same thing that person or that old me can do. There's no way I can do that. I mean, I could try to go test it, but I really don't want to because I think I'll hurt myself even more than I did when I was 16. But those skills don't just stay with me. There might be a glimpse of it. If I keep playing more, I might actually be able... We can go off these pictures now. I don't like looking at myself like that. That was bad. But anyways, those skills aren't completely still with me. If I play more and more, I think I might be able to get them back faster than maybe if I was first starting to play volleyball. But there's no way that I would be at the same level I am now as I was then. Because I don't play. I don't ever play now. Even though in my head I think I'm a committed volleyball player. Really, I'm not, because I don't play. And so I am not a good player because I don't play the game. And the same thing goes where I am not a good Christ follower if I am not following. I am not a good child of God when I don't obey my Heavenly Father. I am not strong in my faith if I'm not running, or if I start running away from situations where faith is the only thing I have to depend on. I won't grow in my faith if I run away from that. I'm not a good imitator of God when I don't know Jesus' actions and his words. I'm not a good example of Jesus when I don't look to Jesus first. I'm not a good volleyball player if I don't play the game. Because that makes sense, right? If I'm not doing something, then I'm not going to be good at the action. It's something that we know in our lives that I know since I don't play and I don't put into the action of practicing, then I'm not going to get the benefit of saying I'm a good volleyball player. And we know that in our lives. Like, we know I'm not going to be good at playing guitar if I don't play the guitar. That makes sense because you're not playing it, you're not practicing it. So we know that in our everyday life, but when it comes to our faith, it's like we make the excuse that our words are enough, that our actions, if we don't have them, that's okay. Our words are enough. And I don't think we do that intentionally, but I feel like the whole church, not just our church, but the Big C church as a whole, we are not going to be committed to God if we don't choose God every day. Just like everything else in our life, like volleyball for me, it's going to be the same thing in our faith. If I don't follow Jesus to where he's at, then I'm not following Jesus. That makes sense. If I'm not reading his word and knowing what he says and what his actions are, then I'm not going to imitate him because I don't know what those words and those actions are. So I'm not a good imitation of Christ. And so there's this thing that in our faith we just kind of assume that, you know, if I commit to God, we have that God moment. We have that we call like the day that we were saved. When you gave your life to Christ, you think if we do that one day, then we're good. We're just going to have to develop this relationship with Christ. But that statement doesn't need to happen on that one day. Like I made that statement when I was 16 on a Thursday at Day Spring. That was when I made that statement. But I have to make that statement every single day. And so when we say that we have to choose God daily, that doesn't mean it's just with our words. Like I said, like going back to volleyball, I can say I'm committed to volleyball because I love volleyball. I do. I love the sport. But how do I show that with my actions? How do I show that I love that sport? How do I show that I'm committed? And that's the same. Well, yeah, if you play it, then that shows if you're committed. But I'm not playing it. So that's the point of that. That doesn't show, or that shows I'm not committed. So in our faith, it's the same way. Where does it show that you are committed to God? Because I think a lot of the times we say that, oh, I love God, and you might really love God in your heart, and you fully believe in God, but what are you doing to show that you love God? That's where I think the commitment shows. That's where we see that we choose God every day. We're choosing to have the relationship with him, to stick through the thick and thin, the moments whenever it's hard, moments when things are good, when things are going bad, no matter how you feel. If you're happy, you're sad, you're tired, you're stressed, you're sick, in whatever way you're feeling, that you are where Jesus is. You go where he is. You love who Jesus loves, who he loves everybody. And you talk and you listen to God as if you're talking to your best friend on the couch. Because that is the relationship that God has with us. Like if you were here last week, Hannah talked about that there's story after story after story in the Bible, and even among all of us, where we can point easily of how committed God is to us, how much he loves us every single day. There's evidence in your life every single day that God loves you. And so today, I just want to talk to you about where can we point in our lives every single day that we can show that love and commitment back. And so there's, like I said, there's a lot of stories over and over again of God's promises being kept and him being committed. And so today I want to talk about someone that has a choice to choose between being committed or running away. And this is Elijah. Do you guys know who Elijah is?
Yes.
He's a prophet. I'm going to tell you who he is anyways. So I guess I don't have to ask, but he's a prophet. And prophets at that time were a communication from God to a king. Like that's the best way of kind of describing it. There's a king and God appointed him, like King David was appointed as king. And the prophet communicates with God, listens from God, or listens to God, and then communicates that to the king. So if you read through the books of Kings, there's some really terrible people in that book. I know our Bible study is reading it right now, but even Pastor Larry, if you're here on Sunday, is doing a sermon series called Worst Kings Ever. I mean, there are some terrible people in that book, and they were all the king of Israel, which makes sense, right? The king should be the terrible person. Not at all. So there's these prophets that keep on trying to help them and guide them, and Elijah is one of these prophets, and he is working with King Ahab, who is just the worst and just completely rolls over, and just his wife basically rules the whole country, I feel like. So Ahab marries a woman named Jezebel. You've ever heard that name?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jezebel follows many gods. She follows Baal. I guess I'm just going to say it that way, Baal. And what she, over time, basically did was, okay, hey, husband, you should kill all the prophets of God so that way my prophets can teach. And he's like, okay. And he does it. So he tries to kill all the prophets, but a few get away because there's some good people there. And I was just like, no, don't kill them. So Elijah hears about everything that is going on, and he is pissed. And I mean, God is mad too, because the king is supposed to be leading the country to praise him, and he's turning him away. And so Elijah, he comes and confronts Ahab and the prophets of Baal. I guess that's what I'm saying it. So what happens, and this is probably one of my favorite stories in the Bible because it just is hilarious, I think. So he says, we're going to have a challenge. Almost like these prophets are going to have almost a dance-off, but it's a miracle, so they're going to have like a miracle-off challenge against each other. And what they do is they set up an altar, and they're saying, we are going to pray for God to rain down fire to light this altar and this sacrifice. And they both have it. And so the other prophets, there's a ton of them, are going first. And they're praying, they're doing some weird things, they're dancing, they're hurting themselves. I think they actually kill other people. Like, they do some weird stuff trying to get their God to bring down fire to light this altar. And the whole time, Elijah's basically like pointing fingers and being like, ha ha, like, what kind of God is that? You can't even do this, and mocking them completely. Which I think is hilarious. That he's doing that, at least. I wouldn't do that. But anyway, so he's mocking them, and it gets to the point they're like, okay, it's my turn. So he dumps a bunch of water on the altar, because if you try to light wood that's been wet, you can't do it. Like, it's very difficult to try to light wood that's been wet. So he's just throwing water after water on it, and he's like, let's make this as difficult as possible so I can prove that our God is the real God. And so they do that. He walks up to it. He basically is like, hey, God, light this on fire. And then, like, rains down fire and completely puts the thing in a blaze, like crazy, and then he kills all the other prophets. Like, great, that's a very short summary, but that's a story. And so that's where we are in our reading. That happens right before the scripture that we have tonight. Think about, like, Elijah has so much confidence in God going into that situation. That's why he's mocking them. He has no fear of, oh, this might actually not work. Like, he doesn't have any doubts. He's just like, oh, I got this. Like, God, you got this. You could do this. And then just completely make fun of them. And so that's where we're at. And Ahab goes back to his wife Jezebel to tell of that situation. So that's where we pick up in 1 Kings, verse 19. And it says, when Ahab got home, he told Jezebel everything Elijah had done, including the way he had killed all the prophets of Baal. So Jezebel sent this message to Elijah, may the gods strike me and even kill me if by this time tomorrow I have not killed you just as you killed them. Elijah was afraid and fled for his life. He went to Beersheba, a town in Judah, and left his servant there. Then he went on alone into the wilderness, traveling all day. He sat down and under a solitary broom tree and prayed that he might die. I have had enough, Lord, he said. Take my life, for I am no better than my ancestors who have already died. There's a pretty drastic change from that story I told you in that, right? It's almost like you're reading two totally different Elijahs, two different people. If you read the story, you can see the confidence Elijah has of him knowing that I'm going to disprove these people because my God is the one true God. Like, he has strong faith in it. And then all of a sudden, one evil queen comes out and says, I'm going to kill you because you killed them, and he runs away. Which, running away from someone that's trying to kill you, good job on that. That's a good move. But then he just goes into this, I've had enough. I can't handle this anymore, God. Please just take my life. Let this end. I don't want to do this. And he just gives up. Like, it's almost like two totally different Elijahs. And so what changed? What made that happen from going from straight confidence and faith in God to being terrified and saying, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. This is something that maybe we don't face as drastically, but I think we do face this a lot, to where we have an incredible moment. If you've gone to camp or a mission trip, or you've had it here or in your house or in your car when you're worshiping God, this incredible moment with God where he's just so powerful and you're just like, yes, like, you know it's true. And you hold on to that, and then life gets in the way and something bad happens, and it's like it's all gone. And so we know what Elijah's going through, and so whenever we go through something like that, I think that there's two things that make us backslide from the commitment we make with God. That commitment of saying, God, I'm going to pursue you, I'm going to love you, I'm going to stay faithful to you. And I think there's two things that make that happen, and that's fear and lack of confidence, or lack of faith even. Fear and lack of confidence are two things that go straight into doubt, and doubt goes straight into giving up. Giving up on trying to reach that one friend that isn't seeking Jesus anymore because maybe you have a lack of confidence of, I can't say the right words. Giving up on reading the Bible because it's getting too hard to understand, or I don't have enough time to do it, so you give up on that. Giving up on having these strong moments with God to where you have even doubts that how is our God real? And so you give up on trying to seek a real answer because you're afraid to find out what the answer is. Fear and lack of faith and lack of confidence lead us to this doubt that just makes that commitment we made on that day one to where we want to pursue God completely just disappear. And I don't think it's something that we choose to where it's not like, okay, God, I'm going to choose not to follow you today. Like, I'm just not going to stay committed to you today. I don't think it's something that we acknowledge, but I think it's something that life throws something at us and we don't know what to do, which is why fear comes into play, or we don't think we can do it, and so our lack of confidence in God using us comes into play, and we just start to go downhill really fast. And so this is what Elijah is dealing with, and this is something that we deal with all the time. Fear and lack of confidence in God being able to use us makes us quit the commitment we made. But Elijah, looking to him as inspiration, had a choice before him on what he is going to do. And it's a choice that we're going to have every time we face these situations. And so we have to choose one of two things, and we can read that from the rest of this passage. Starting in verse 5, it says, "Then he lay down and slept under the broom tree. But as he was sleeping, an angel touched him and told him, 'Get up and eat.' He looked around, and there beside his head was some bread baked on hot stones, and a jar of water. So he ate and drank and lay down again. Then the angel of the Lord came again and touched him and said, 'Get up and eat some more, or the journey ahead will be too much for you.' So he got up and ate and drank, and the food gave him enough strength to travel 40 days and 40 nights to Mount Sinai, the mountain of God." Elijah was ready to give up, but God wasn't. Elijah had experienced these miracles. I mean, that's incredible. The fact that he stood there and disproved the other gods by praying with straight confidence for our God to come down and rain the fire and burn up this altar. He had that confidence, but then the slightest bit of fear, he ran away. But God didn't give up. He wasn't done with Elijah. He wasn't done with what Elijah can do, and he continues to go on and do incredible things, bringing people back to the Lord as one of the prophets. So God stayed committed. Like we talked last week, he stayed faithful, and he was not ready to give up on Elijah. And so Elijah woke up, and he had bread and water sitting in front of him. I mean, he was by himself. It's not like some little fairy came around and I guess you can consider the angel a little fairy, but it was God that put the bread and the water right in front of him. He had proof in front of him that God was going to stay faithful and stay true to him, and that he loves him, is going to take care of him. So the choice that he had to make in that time, and the choice we have to make a lot, is, are we going to choose to run away, or are we going to choose to run to God? That comes down to what our commitment looks like. And so fear and the lack of confidence are the biggest things that we have to face. But this commitment to God, that's the thing that will help us every time, if we hold on to that. And that's what commitment is. It's holding on. You are not giving up, and God has never given up on you. And the reason that we know to stay committed to God is because God doesn't give up on you. He loves you no matter what you face, no matter what mistakes you make, no matter what situation you're in. If you begin to run away, you get pushed off the path because life just smacks you down, he builds you a new path to come back to him. He constantly is seeking you out. And so we have to come to this choice of, are we going to run away, or are we going to run to God? And so that choice of choosing God daily is waking up in the morning and just saying to God, I choose you. It's that simple. Just waking up and saying, I choose you. And don't let it be just words, but then let your actions show that. And I know whenever I just said earlier the sentences of saying, I'm not a volleyball player when I don't play. I'm not a Christ follower when I don't follow. Whenever we wake up and choose God in the morning every day, that statement goes from not saying, I'm not a follower when I don't follow, or I'm not an imitator of God when I don't know God, it turns into something that I desire to be and I want to achieve. Because I'm committed to God to be that person. Not the thing that I don't like that I do, but the thing that I am driving myself to be. So it will no longer say, I'm not an imitator of God because I don't know God. It's going to say, I'm an example of Jesus when I know Jesus. And so this is something that on your handouts you have before you as well. And so in a little bit, I'm going to ask the worship team to come back up. And you guys can sit down in row of lights. You can stand up and worship in any way that you want. But this is something that going forward, as we talked about commitment, and as you are starting off a new school year, it's the perfect time to make a new commitment to God. And the thing with this is it's not making just a commitment today. You make this commitment every day. You wake up and you say this commitment. For me, you heard a little bit of my list before, but what this used to be, in my honesty, is I am not a good example of Jesus when I don't search for Jesus. That's what I was. But I'm changing my commitment today, and I'm going to try to say this every day to, I am an imitator of Jesus when I know and seek out Jesus. That's going to be my action that I'm going to put out, hoping I become that. That's what commitment shows. It's choosing God every single day. And so I want you guys to take time to think about this. What is something that you want to do so that you can become this type of person for God? And so the worship team wants to come up now, and I'm going to pray us out. Just keep this in mind and be praying about it. You guys can post it somewhere in your room, have it as your screensaver. You can do it in any way that you want, but make this commitment today. And if you have any questions, I know that we have incredible leaders around that would love to help you, and we're going to go into small group in a little bit to where you guys can continue to talk about this. And so if you guys will bow your head with me and open your hearts and your minds as you welcome God into leading you to this commitment you are called to do. And so Jesus, we come before you today with thankful hearts that we were able to come into your presence and praise your holy name, God. A name that deserves more praise than what we can ever give. And God, we are just so thankful for the commitment that you made to us. You made this huge commitment whenever you died on that cross, Jesus, so that you can give us freedom, so that you can save us every single day. And so God, even though we fail at being consistent and being committed, because the fears and our lack of confidence pull us back, God, we just need you more to hold us up, to keep us going. And that God, when times get hard, when we have to do something we just don't want to do, that God, you remind us of this commitment that we make before you. The one that we make today, one that we make tomorrow, one that we make 5 years from now. God, we are just thankful that we are able to come into your presence and be your child. We thank you and we ask that you speak to us now through your song, just through your voice, that we know where you are calling us to. It's in your name I pray. Amen.